So this video is going to show you how to use Onshape to create math functions and then their subsequent cross sections. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the link provided. That'll take you to this starter file for Onshape, and then you're going to click make a copy to edit. And let me just switch my screen, and this is what yours is going to look like then. That make copy to edit will be gone. Basically what's going on is you've already defined a parameter, which we'll call x. You can see it's named x in there. And then these are two parametric curves that were already set up for you so that you had something to start with. And if you want to see them, you can click here and go to the top view. To edit these functions, you just double click in here, and then you can leave everything the same, but where you're going to want to change it is your y. And right now, this is just y equals x. If you want to say something like, say, y equals x cubed, why is this not? Let me try that again. There we go. I guess just use your arrow keys to get into there. You can click the x cubed so that it looks like that. Make sure the in stays here, which is the units. This function needs to have the units associated with it. And so now you can see this curve, if I highlight it, is your x squared curve. Another example is if you want a sine function, just come in here. You can just say sine. You have to refer to x as hashtag x, not just x. And if I click this, it's going to create these little parentheses afterwards. You don't want those either, so I'm going to get rid of that. And you need to say for sine, you need to give it radians so that it's calculating that as if it's radians. And now you also have to say inches at the end of it because we're working in CAD, so everything has a dimension to it. And now I have two different functions here. And this is our bounded area, which we are trying to create the cross-sectional area for the math project. So now this is going to be up to you to decide which direction your cross-sections are going. Okay, so the next step is you're going to want to create a sketch on the same plane as where these are. So we're going to hit sketch, and we'll say the top plane because that's what we're looking at right now. And I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to click this button to make it a construction line, and I'm going to click right here on the origin, which is where these 2 points come together. And as you can see, if I draw this line and I come to where it would be horizontal, it snaps to that horizontal. You can see that it has that little line to the right of my cursor. And I'm just going to click that down. And then I'm going to right click and say escape line. So now what you're going to want to do is figure out how many points you want to divide your shape into. So the next thing I'm going to do is create another line. I'm going to hover over this point up here where it comes together, and you can tell I'm getting where it comes together because instead of only selecting one line as orange, if I come in, it selects both lines as orange, and that means I'm getting that intersecting point, and I'm going to come down. And I won't click on this right now, as you can see, until it shows that it is coincident with that horizontal line, and sorry, perpendicular with that line. I'm going to click that. So that's sort of like our area between the start and the end of your curve. So how many points do you want in there? That's for you to decide. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this line and I'm going to click linear pattern. And what that does is it just creates a pattern of whatever it is that you're clicking on for as many times as you tell it to. So here is where instead of having 3, well, let me show you what you can do. You can drag this arrow and make it go in the direction back towards your origin. And you can see these lines are going to slice through this part or this bounded area. So let's say we want 20 lines, which would actually, so I'm going to call it 21 so that we get 20 spaces. So as you might know, you need 21 lines to make 20 spaces. So I'm going to click 21 and hit enter. And it is telling me the space of 0.13. Now you may have calculated this space already. That would be 21. Instead, I'm just going to hit my left button for now and let it create 21 that is not going in the right direction because I forgot to do one step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure. So this button down here that looks like a tape measure, will let you measure. And I'm going to go from this point back down to our origin. Make sure you're getting that origin in here. And the distance is 0.929. In fact, I can even click in there and right click and say copy so I get it down to that small decimal point. And now that I got that, I can come into this dimension here. I'm going to double click on that. And now I'm going to paste that and say divide by, it's going to be 20, not 21, because it's the number of spaces. Exactly. And now you can see our 21st line, it landed right on our origin. And so now you can see we have all of these are representing your cross-sectional area that you have to make. So that's how you get your lines evenly distributed. And now what you are going to need to do is make your cross-sectional shape. So I'm going to hit this green check. We still have a flat plane and we don't have anything in that third dimension. So what I'm going to do is you have to create a work plane so that you can draw in that third dimension. So I'm going to click plane and I'm going to click this line and I'm going to give it an angle of 90 degrees. And that just means 90 degrees to the normal direction. And now you can see we have a plane going right there through that first line. And you can do this for all of your lines. So I'll show you again. If I click plane, I would just click that line and say 90. And there you go. You can see I have another plane. You can do that for as many times as you have shapes. If it gets too much to look at, you can hide all of anything that you don't want to look at the moment. You can turn it back on by clicking this eyeball. I'm going to hide that because what I want to do is I want to draw this. For this example, we're going to draw a semicircle as the cross-sectional shape. So I'm going to click and say sketch right on that plane, which is right where this line is. Now, again, we're going to need to measure the distance from here to there to get what your radius is going to be. So okay, so now before we finish this sketch, you're going to want to trim the lines that are extending beyond your shape. And to do that, we're first going to say, click this button that's called the Use button, and we're going to make sure you pick your sketch line or your formula line. And I'll do that for both lines, and you can see now it's a darker line. And now what we can do is just hit the scissors tool, which is called the trim tool. And you can literally just trim away every part of that line that doesn't matter what order you do it in. I'm not going to show you every one, but basically you just cut away every extra bit of the line. And if you zoom in, you can make sure you get the little bit there. You can do it here if you want. If it looks like the dots overhanging like you see here, that's okay. That's just the fact that you're zooming in so far that the graphics aren't keeping up with what you're doing. Now, one thing I just realized that I did incorrectly is I told you to make these lines construction lines. Instead, they should all be regular style lines. So you're going to want to select all of those lines, which hopefully you can just, you can draw that box around them and then hit the shift, or you don't even have to hit shift, just click on these two outside lines to unselect that. And now you can see we have all those lines in orange, so they're selected. And now you can hit this toggle and those will go back to regular solid lines. Okay, so now what we're going to do is get out of this sketch. This is assuming you've trimmed all of these lines. And I just want to show you, this is still a sketch that only is in the 2 dimensions. And what we need to now do is add that third dimension in the Z direction to it to make it your 3-dimensional shape. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to, whatever your shape is, for this example, we're going to do semicircles. So you need to draw a semicircle right here on this line, and then on this line, and this line, and so on. So to do that, though, you're going to have a sketch plane on that line. It's like putting a piece of paper through that line. So I'm going to create click the wrong button. First, you want to make a plane. So I'm going to click the plane button, and I'm going to just simply select. If you zoom in, you want to make sure you get the line itself, not the point in the middle of the line. So I'm going to click that line, And now I'm just going to say make it 90 degrees. And that just means add a plane that is 90 degrees to the surface where that line is, and through that line. So you can see we now have a plane going right through that line. I'm going to green check that. And now, just like in the prior processes, you can do this as many times as you have lines. So again, I'm going to pick that line, make it 90 degrees. And it may seem a little tedious, but it's a pretty quick process in the end. So I'm not going to do all of them just like I did before. But there you go. You now have 3 planes. It doesn't matter what size the planes are. They grow as the line grows in length, but planes are infinitely long, as you probably know by now. So now what we're going to do is use this plane and draw a semicircle on each of those planes. So I'm going to hit the sketch button, and I'm going to pick this plane 1 to draw on. And now all you need to do is I'm going to drop this down and say, sorry, not that one, this one, and say center point arc. And what that means is I'm going to pick the center first and then the start and end points of the arc. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to zoom in and make sure that you get the midpoint of this line. So what you can do is, as you can see, as I move my cursor along this line, it has this little icon that looks like, I don't know, a sideways T. If I come towards the middle of the line, you can see it picks a little orange spot on the line, and then it changes that icon to a line with a dot, which just indicates you're on the middle or the midpoint of that line. So I'm going to click now and make sure I got that midpoint. Now I'm going to come over and I'm going to pick the end point here. And I'll come over and, oh, it's going the wrong way. Yep, it's going the wrong way. So I'm going to undo that and do it again, but I'll pick the other side now. So there we go, get the midpoint. Click over there. And now I'm going to click over here on the other end point of that line. And now you can see I have a semicircle. And I'm going to hit the use tool. And that will, by clicking that and clicking this line, now you can see that arc or that semicircle is actually enclosed. And that's it for that sketch plane. Now you come to the next one, plane 2, draw the same sketch, pick that same button, which is center point arc, zoom in, make sure you get the center. And I'm guessing we need to be on this side now. Come over. You're going to want to zoom in here and make sure you get the endpoint at your function, not at my line that indicated the horizontal x-axis. You can use your mouse to zoom in and out, by the way, so your middle mouse button. If you scroll it, that's in and out. And if you need to move around, you can hold the middle mouse button down and move around. All right. So you can imagine you're going to do that as many times as you have planes. The last thing you need to do, if you see, you still just have a sketch coming off of in your third dimension. So now you need to actually add thickness. And now you should be able to hit extrude, pick that shape, and now you can see it's going for a really long time. This is where you need to know the distance between your points. So if you don't know that, I'm going to get out of this so that we can go measure it. And I'm going to measure the distance, say from one point to the next point. Or you can measure from one plane to the next plane or so on. And I'm getting 0.046, but if you click in here, you can get it down to all of the decimal points and say copy. And now if I come back to that extrude button, I'm going to pick this little semicircle to extrude, and the depth I want to extrude, I'm going to hit Control V for paste, and that's that area, or sorry, distance between the two sketch points. And the last thing I'm going to do is say symmetric. And what symmetric does is it splits that area under the curve so that it's central or centered right where your line is. All right, so that's one shape. You can hit extrude and do the next shape. So I'm going to pick that semicircle again, hit Control V, make it symmetric. And now you can see where this is going. Because we're going to have lots of semicircles that are going along in the direction that you want. So if you just keep repeating this process, you should have what you need.